Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the Late Night History Show. I am your host, as you guys know, Carlos Alvarez Macias. Stop it. No need to, I love you guys too. Okay, tonight's edition of the show will be consisting of genres. More specifically, we'll be talking about superhero comic books. Tonight we also have a very special guest with us tonight. Our very own Lillian Trujillo, who is our janitor and artist, will be talking to us more about superhero comics. A key term we want to know a lot about today would be a discourse community, which is a group of people or individuals that share a similar goal and similar interests. So grab some popcorn and get ready, because this show's about to be a treat. And no pun intended. Just kidding, totally intended. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Welcome back, everyone. Right next to me, we have our one and only Lillian Trujillo, our janitor and art artist. So, Lillian, do you happen to know why we decided to bring you here as a special guest?
Because you're going to pay me extra?
Okay. You got me there. We'll give you a $50 bonus. But that is really not the reason we brought you here. Outside the office, you have talked to me about comic books and your experience with them. So I have a few questions for you as you're part of this discourse community. The first one being, to which age group are comic books mostly directed to? Do you happen to know?
Well, comic books are mostly directed to teenagers, like 13 to 20, 21, but I really don't think that's correct. Because I happen to know like people that enjoy it that are way over those that age gap. For example, my dad, he's 50 years old, and he still buys, Superman, Spider-Man, and even my nephew, who's like 4, he loves going through like Spider-Man, stuff like that. So I really think it's for everyone.
Okay, very interesting. I actually thought the opposite way. I thought it was just directed to 13 and 21-year-olds, up to that age. Mm-hmm. So my next question is, how are people usually attracted to this genre?
Well, I would say I was attracted to it mainly because it's very easy to understand and read. Because comic books is like, okay, you have a picture and then it's like dialogue. It's like you're having a conversation, you're seeing it. You're not have to visualize everything word by word. So I think that's one of the main reasons people really like it. It's like you don't have to think super hard. You just read it, it's there for you.
Okay, perfect. That is super interesting. Okay, back to the interview. So, going back to the topic of discourse communities, as I mentioned before, discourse communities are a group of people who share a similar interest and also have a similar goal. So, throughout social media, I've seen people get together, like fans of comic books, on something called Comic-Con. Do you happen to know what that is?
Well, yeah, actually Comic-Con is a goal of mine. I want to go there someday. So Comic-Con is an event held in California. Every year where artists and other people go and share their work. And usually, you can see everything there. You can see exhibitions, you can see panels, a lot of superhero TV shows will often go there and be like, hey, this is what we're planning. Or even other shows like Supernatural and Supergirl and stuff like that will often go there to tell their audience this is what you can expect from us and this is what you cannot expect from us. So I've often seen a lot of people just cosplaying as well, which is dressing up as different characters. So I think that's what makes it super fun, and that's what Comic-Con is.
Okay, perfect. We actually have a cosplayer right there dressing up as me. Looking good, dude. Okay, perfect. Those basically complete my questions. Thank you so much, Ian. We really appreciate doing this office. And so before we move on to talk more about comic books, we'll take a quick commercial break. So we'll be back in a flash. Welcome back, everyone. So in case you missed my previous conversation with Lillian about discourse communities, you can click on the link down below after tonight's show in order to experience the full conversation by yourself. So now let's get right into the comic books. So first off, I want to explain what an issue is, because comic books come in issues. So an issue would be like a sub part of the comic book of the entire plot, all compiled into one book. So for example, you may have one issue where the superhero starts fighting someone and it may end while they're still fighting. And then on the second issue, the fight will resume, and at the end of the second issue, the fight will end. So that's one example. Another example can be seen on the Ultimate Spider-Man comic, which I have right here on the table. So for example, on the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, we can see how the villain Norman Osborn is creating a radioactive spider, which will, spoiler alert, bite Spider-Man, and he will become Spider-Man. Oh, come on. This comic book series has been out for at least 10, 20 years, so don't let that bug you. That was supposed to be funny. Okay, anyway, let's get back to the comic books. So, the end of the first issue ends up with Spider-Man discovering his superpowers, and at the second issue, we see how he's back in class, already experiencing some of the side effects he gets from the radioactive spider, which, in conclusion, ends up with him breaking his desk. So this is basically what an issue is. An issue would be continuing from like the first issue all the way to like there's an issue that eventually ends the whole entire comic book series. I'm sorry. But now we'll be taking a quick break where we will now discuss some of the design and organization that goes into comic books. So welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to be talking about some of the organization and design that goes into these comic books. I will be using the Batman comics and going back to the Ultimate Spider-Man comics as an example. So let's go into the Batman comics first, where we can see how it's very colorful. We can see two villains up here, the Riddler, Two-Face, and we also see Batman and his sidekick Robin. So something very interesting about comic books is that on the front page they usually have an artwork that may relate to some of the content that may be inside of it. So for example, on the front page of a comic you may have the superhero punching the villain, and then inside the comic while you read the issue you may experience a battle between that superhero and the villain. So something else we can also notice on this front page is how the title of the comic book is bolded and also bigger than the other words in it. So enough about that, and let's now talk about some of the content inside the comic book. So comic books are usually known because of their visuals. So as you can see on this example of the Batman comic, we can see how it's full of pictures, but wait a minute, there's many pictures within one page. We can also see this in the example of Ultimate Spider-Man, how there's many frames per page and many pictures, which makes it very colorful. There's also some times where a whole page may take up an entire picture, like on this one where Peter Parker's breaking his desk once again. So if that didn't crack you up, haha, that was funny. Come on guys, laugh. Okay, anyways, now let's talk about something more interesting within the comic books, which is the use of speech bubbles and thought bubbles. The speech bubbles are mostly the dialogue that help the plot progress. The main characters and the villains may incorporate these type of speech bubbles, but they may also incorporate thought bubbles, which express their feelings and their thoughts, which is something very interesting. Another writing technique that is used here is the use of onomatopoeia, as we can see here again when Peter Parker breaks his desk with the word crack. I'm sorry for that, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. The lights went out. Apparently the energy bill is too expensive for me to afford, so please bear with me and I will be back to enlighten you with more information. So please stay tuned. So now let us talk about some of the hidden factors within this comic book. We have social, political, and economic factors hidden within them. So one political factor which is actually very interesting happened a year before the bombing of Pearl Harbor, where the first issue of Captain America was released. The artwork of the front page basically showcased Captain America hitting Hitler. This is one of the ways comic books can get political, but we can also see it through the use of kingpins as villains. So ironically, in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, once again, we have Wilson Fisk, who is a kingpin, and has control over the gangs of Manhattan in order for him to be able to launder money. This is also stating some of the economic issues within them and the use of and the abuse of power that kingpins have on society. Another thing we can see here is the obvious answer, the crime, how comic books usually portray crime, and that is one of the social factors. So that is basically it for this genre. Thank you again for cooperating with me, for listening to my whole entire night show. I hope you all have a great night, and I'll see you next time. I am your host, Carlos Alvarez, and I'm signing off. Peace.